eclipse was in 2017, and it also went across the United States. So this, if you look at the 2017 and the 2024, they make an X across the United States.
Oh my God!
Very
You're
symbolic.
already diving into it.
24.
He's already jumping.
So 2024 is all about the letter X.
For anyone who knows,
There's
Mike,
a lot
all
of
about
weird
X.
things happening that
Twitter
day.
changed their name to X. X is the 24th letter of the alphabet. If you ever look at Starlink's logo,
yeah.
Musk's company,
Well, it's now X.
no, Starlink.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So their logo is the exact same. If you look at the solar eclipse from 17 and 24 and what the design it makes across the United States, it's the exact same logo as Starlink.
Okay.
So it's all connected. It's all for a reason. I don't know what they're going to be using this eclipse for, but it represents something
how do
major.
you know this, man? Every
But there's
time.
interesting things.
Every time.
There's
Every
super
time.
interesting things that are happening that day.
Oh, it's raining today. Well, as
A
a
lot
matter
of
of fact,
crazy
did you
Like
know?
CERN, you know, that super collider is turning on for some reason during the eclipse. I don't know why.
For the first time in 2 years.
Yeah. NASA's launching rockets towards the eclipse.
Yeah.
Israel is planned to sacrifice what are they called? Red heifers. I don't even know what that means.
It's all biblical.
And then a lot of cities around the world declared an emergency state. So there's a little panic in the air.
Yeah.
For this
It's the
Monday.
8th.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah.
I got to get some of these glasses.
Yeah.
I'm just going to look right at it.
So it's
I'm
the
gonna live on the
moon
edge.
gets in front of the sun,
Exactly.
correct?
I believe so. I
And
don't
creates an eclipse. I don't know if
And
it goes
you could
dark
see
for
the
a
whole
few days.
ring.
Does it go dark for a few?
Because it's during
Yeah.
the day. That's
Yeah.
why it's during the day, so we get shade.
I mean, they're letting kids out early at school during that.
Really?
period, Yeah.
First time ever. They're giving
Yeah.
there's military all across the U.S. in big cities in place.
Just
They're telling you to
weird.
load up on water, food.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
We've
treating
had
it. They're
eclipses
treating it like a
before.
national. I
Yeah.
know, but they're treating this like a national.
It's just shade.
emergency.
We're just getting some shade.
Yeah, I know.
That's
I
it.
don't know if it's symbolic of
What
something.
am I missing here?
I
I
think
remember
it's
there was
saying-
one in the 90s. I was a kid.
Yeah.
I remember being in Lebanon as a
Yeah.
kid, 8 years old, and my dad, he took a piece of glass. This is what he did. Maybe this is the glass. I swear to God, my dad did this. He took a picture frame, and you know, with without the backing of the picture frame, you got the frame in the glass.
Yeah.
He took a lighter to the glass, and it turned black.
Okay.
Right? Because
Yeah.
from the lighter
Sure.
on the
Yeah,
glass,
yeah.
it made like the black smoke,
Right.
the tar, whatever it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then he put it and looked through it.
Really?
And that's what he used. And I remember I was a kid. He had me look through this like tar-covered piece of glass to look at the eclipse.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well-
Apparently, Niagara Falls is just loaded with tourists
Yeah.
to see the
Who knows,
eclipse.
the eclipse
Even
might stop the falls.
Amherstburg is supposed to be a good spot for
Amherstburg,
it too.
yeah.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
interesting. It's gonna be interesting. Well, anyways, let's introduce our guests for episode 14. We got Christian Saab here from CPG, correct?
CPG recruitment.
You are the founder,
Yeah.
franchisor, recruiter, and matchmaker. What's the matchmaker?
I guess I just put people
Yeah.
and businesses together. We haven't incorporating a dating platform yet. But
Is that next?
we're putting people together. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
what got you into the recruitment industry. I know you were
yeah.
doing other things prior to that, so
Yeah,
maybe tell us
so-
your story.
Career started as an engineer, and then I started a car wash, which is how we met.
Yep.
We used to come right in this parking lot and wash
Oh, nice.
wash mobile detailing. So
Nice.
come right to your door with our own water, our own electricity. I still give the whole spiel and everything every time I introduce it, like I still have it, right? And long story short, 70% of my customers were business owners, which at the time, you remember when I was young in business there, I was really curious about how you were running this business, right? And
Always
this is
asking
how,
questions.
always asking a million questions. He was one of my victims of the 70%. I'm like, what do you do here? Like, I'm fascinated by business, right? And after a couple years of really getting to know everybody, I found that everyone was complaining about the same thing in their business was people. They can't grow their business without people.
Right.
They, if they have tons of people, half of them aren't good. They got to get rid of them, or by the time they train someone, they quit. Like, it was always some form of a complaint on, I need a person here in my company, and I can't grow my company without this type of talent, these types of people, so I need help. It was always popping up.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm like, man, if I got good at solving that problem, I'll never run out of work.
Right.
I never, I'm an engineer. Last thing I think of is HR or recruiting, right? Never fathomed the idea, but the problem was so much in front of me. And even for me, I was an engineer at Chrysler, and I quit there because I was very unhappy with the culture and the people. Like, I felt it as an employee And then I felt it as an employer building my first business. And then all my peers around me were feeling it. So I'm like, you know what? This problem is not going anywhere in any place in the world. So I'm like, I got to get into the game. I got to get a piece of it. And it was the best business decision I've ever made in my life. So today, you know, we're fast forward now 4 years. And, you know, we're doing work across Canada and the U.S., helping companies find good people and helping good people find a career, which is why I named it CPG. Careers, people, growth.
Oh, okay.
That's the C's for careers.
Yeah.
I like it. And then you franchise as well. So you have a few different locations across Canada.
So myself, just as my succession plan or business strategy, how I want to grow this, I fully intend by the time I'm 50 years old, I want to have 200 locations. And for me, I'm what builds a great business is having happy customers, and I feel having an owner in each location. Owners have an element of care. We have and my odds will be, the brand's odds will be higher as far as a customer satisfaction when we have each location being run by an owner rather than employees and salespeople and recruiters. So that's why I decided to franchise. Awesome. And you know, it's a work in progress. It's still the beginning. We're not nearly anywhere we want to be, but I've got 20 years to do it, so I'm in no rush.
So based off your experience so far, I mean, I ask pretty much everybody that comes on here what their pulse of the Windsor market is. Obviously, you have a whole different bird's eye view of this, speaking with business owners every day, hiring people, talking about salaries, opportunities. How do you currently see the Windsor market? Are a lot of people hiring? Where do you see the opportunities? What industries are you seeing it? Maybe touch on that a little bit.
Well, I'll start with this because there's about 7 questions in that one line you just said there. So we'll break it up. The one thing that stands out, and it's not just Windsor, it's everywhere. And I touch on a lot of different economies in a lot of different cities in the States and here, and it's the same thing everywhere. Just in North America. I'm amazed as to... I'm confused every day. One of the questions that we always ask every person that we meet that's looking for a job or applied for a position is, what's your salary expectation? And they give me a number, and I'm like, how are you even alive? Like, how are you surviving when your salary expectation is $19 an hour, $20 an hour, $22 an hour? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
But it all depends on what job, right? Like,
dude, I'm talking like... So we've done ranges from $40,000 to $180,000 a year salary. Let's say that's my range.
Okay.
95% of every person that we've ever employed is under $60,000.
Interesting.
Wow.
It's a special event when I'm getting a position that's $75,000, $80,000.
So basically, what people are hiring for are lower paying jobs.
Yes.
The higher paying jobs don't really exist right now. Is that what you're seeing? They exist, but they're not very abundant.
They're not very, but and it makes sense, right? If you look at the whole thing of life, you know, not everyone is making $200,000 a year. It's not there. If everyone's making $200,000 a year, that means there's a lot less people making $600,000 a year. Yeah. It's very perspective. However, when you start looking at, you know, once upon a time making $60,000 a year, you had a pretty good life here in Windsor. You didn't need to work too hard. Life was okay.
Yeah.
But we've seen what's happened. You've talked about this. What's happened over the last 5 years, 4 years, 3 years? That $60,000 doesn't go far anymore.
No, the inflation is out of control.
Exactly. Yeah. Relative to the inflation, it's a mess, and the employment market hasn't caught up to it.
I don't think it ever will.
It will never.
No.
I can't see it and if they try by bringing up minimum wage and all that, it's not going to be a significant jump like what inflation is.
No,
so
that works against the entrepreneur. You can't. I mean, raising
which will inflate it even more.
You're just going to raise their prices, and we pay in the end, right?
Yep, exactly. So it's almost a problem that I still don't understand. I don't know the solution.
I think it's a lot of it is that they don't see the opportunities of a higher paying job because they don't really exist. I mean, where do you see the higher paying jobs? What fields are you seeing those in? I mean, I'm assuming it's mostly professional accountants. What types of roles are out there?
So some professional positions have gone down in value.
Really?
Some professional positions have stayed up in value, and I'll dive into that. And vice versa with the trades. Some have not moved, and some have gone up. So let's talk about professional ones. So going to university, getting a degree, and getting a professional job. such as engineer, doctor, lawyer. Let's look at those three, actually. Just engineers, doctors, and lawyers. Engineering has lost its value completely.
Really?
You could hire an engineer right out of school for $50,000, and that's all they're going to get.
Even
When
Chrysler, GM,
Yep,
Ford,
I graduate
States.
Chrysler. If you're gonna go to an auto manufacturer, you're better off going to a manufacturing facility because at least you can get overtime. Whereas if you're at head office, you're making 50 to 60,000.
Wow.
Where when I graduated, this was 2014. How I ended up here was getting a job at Chrysler. My salary was 71,000. And I was fortunate to work at the manufacturing facility where I could put in overtime, and I made my first T4 was $95,000.
Okay.
22 years old, right out of university. Haven't met a single engineer that right out of university is doing that. That problem is a significant mess, especially here, is because of the partnership they did with India and bringing in all the Indian kids to come and study a master's in engineering. So if we were, I'd love to see if we can actually do this. Maybe I'd have to call in one of my staff. If we put up an engineering job posting right now, by the time we're done this podcast, I'm curious to see how many people apply.
Really?
And I'm actually very curious. Is there a way we can pull this off? Can you do me a favor? Text Avery. Tell her to put up, just on the CPG logistics, put up a engineering position. Do mechanical engineer. And do a basic mechanical engineer for manufacturing somewhere here in Windsor. Have her make it up. They won't care. They're going to apply anyways. I'm certain. I'm going to bet my over-under. I'm going to bet 20 will apply in the next hour. Hopefully I'm close.
And a few years ago, how many would have applied?
I'm not certain how many would have applied, but we know the basic supply and demand phenomena.
Right.
When you have so much supply.
And are most of those resumes of Indian descent?
Especially here, yes.
Yes.
Because every single Indian person here most likely went
Had an engineering
a master's of engineering program, and it's not just happening here. When I was in Halifax visiting my parents 3 months ago, I went to an Italian pizza shop at 2 a.m. after a little bit of going out in the town. And I asked the guys that were all working there, they were all Indian. I said, what are you guys doing in Halifax? They're like, we're in school for Masters of Engineering. I thought it was just here at the University of Windsor, but apparently it's happening in other places.
Across Canada, yeah.
So to me, in Canada, engineering in Canada has been devalued because too much supply. That simple.
I didn't know
There's
that.
way too many applicants. I got so many options. And my options, especially if I'm bringing someone junior, is someone who says, pay me anything, and I just want a job.
Right.
So what does that do? Why should I? If I could pay someone 50 instead of 70,
Yeah.
it happens. At the end of the day, it's business, and I'm going to take that opportunity because the inflation is so high. Here's a chance for me to save $20,000 a year per hire.
Sure.
So engineering, if we go back to doctors, lawyers, engineers, the three best degrees you could possibly get.
Yeah.
Engineering is out the door in Canada. I could hire someone, even if I wanted someone for free, I could get one.
Now,
For free.
going across the border and working in Michigan, are you including that?
It helps.
It helps. Okay.
It helps. So the states didn't do this, from my knowledge at least.
So they're still paying fairly well.
The further south you go, I think we have engineering positions that are senior, that are out there that, yes, a senior engineering level, fantastic. We just employed an engineer actually here in Leamington their salary was about $100,000 of a base salary, but you're 10 years experience. But when we talk entry level,
Yeah.
if our kids are about to go to university today and they had to pick between engineer, doctor, lawyer, I will tell them do not go engineering.
Yeah.
I was probably the last of the few in 2014, in Canada specifically.
So let's just say your kid was going to school right now.
Yep.
And he wasn't sure what he'd like to do. Are you pushing more towards traditional university, or are you pushing more towards learning a trade and being entrepreneurial in that aspect?
You can't lose either or. You can't lose if you go to trades. There's no loss. The odds of you coming out with a job that will get you $100,000 in your first year is trades. The odds are higher.
For sure.
Okay. If you're going to school, med school, that's a whole discussion. You're doing 10 years of schooling. That has not been devalued. As a matter of fact, I think the healthcare space is now paying even more. I think that hasn't been touched.
Okay.
I know I have friends of mine that are doing a residency. They didn't even become a doctor yet, and they're making $80,000 a year on their residency.
So basically, if you're not going to be a doctor or a lawyer, go
Lawyers in the middle.
be a trade. Oh, you're
Lawyers in
not
the
a
middle.
huge fan of that either.
Lawyers in the middle, because and this is more theoretical. We haven't seen it yet, but going to law school, and I know this from Bianca, my fiance, going to law school. And you walk through any university and you see how many lawyers graduated in 1960, 1961, 1962. And everyone knows they have an uncle, a grandfather, a father who's a very successful lawyer that makes a lot of money. So a bunch of kids are like, I want to be a lawyer now. I think 10 years from now, going to school, becoming a lawyer, it's going to be too diluted and supply and demand will simply kick in.
Interesting.
Yes. I was amazed to see when we went to just a gala for the law school here in Windsor. I'm like, there's a lot of people in this room. There was like 500 people in the room. When meanwhile, the graduating picture of 1990 had like 10 people. Right? So I'm like, I think that's going to catch up. I think that's going to catch up.
Too many people are going to university right now is the bottom line.
Yes.
Way too many.
Way too many.
Yeah.
Way too many. You talk accounting and business, same thing. Accountants are not valued as high as they should be.
Yeah.
That's another one. If we throw in the business element into the pillar of four, you got the health, the engineering, the law, and let's throw in the business too. Way too many people with an MBA. Way too many people with I think if you have a CPA, you're golden. You're making over $100,000 no matter what. The moment you get a CPA, you're a winner. But as far as basic accounting, bookkeeping, it can go anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 salary, which was fine at one point in time. But again, that was fine 4 years ago.
You're working very, very hard.
You're working very hard.
It's not a glamorous job.
But what's the cost of what's the quality of living? Like I compare it to quality of living, right? Yeah. Again, 5 years ago, making $70,000 in Windsor was pretty cool. You could buy a house for $300. Your mortgage payment's about $1,000. Your gas is super cheap. But now it's I can't even imagine it. No, I can't imagine it. It doesn't make sense to me.
So we just had a realtor on from Toronto GTA area, and he was. It's actually one of our clips. He's saying that if you're a nurse or a police officer, and you guys are making $200,000, $250,000 a year, he goes, you can't even. He goes, you're living paycheck to paycheck in the Toronto GTA area. That's $200,000.
Yeah.
$100,000 a person.
Yeah,
it's not enough anymore.
It's not enough anymore.
I mean, it depends on your lifestyle, right? But it seems
insane.
like the theory is the more money you make, the more money you spend.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's historically what happens in Windsor. That's what I see.
Yeah.
So you're still living paycheck to paycheck, even though your salary went up 30, 40, 50K.
Yep.
Your living expenses went up 30, 40, 50K.
Yeah.
Well, think of it. Who's making, let's say, $100,000? Who's making $100,000 a year? It's someone who's at least 5 years experience in their field in whatever industry.
Right.
5 years experience. Let's say you come out of school. You're a minimum of the age of 25 to 30. What happens at the age of 25 to 30? You maybe get married.
Right.
You maybe start considering having a kid. Mm-hmm. Let's say you get into the age of 30 to 35. Now you're making $120,000. Your spouse is making $120,000. But in that time of your life, between let's say 28 to 35, it's we need our house. We just have 3 kids. We've got now 2 cars. We want to have a little bit of fun. We want to do a vacation. We've got all these. You're no longer a 23-year-old that lives with mom.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's you've got your own responsibility with every single bill that you got to pay for, right? So your cost of living has skyrocketed, but it's now compiled with these life events that you're having that I personally know people that they've flat out told me that both the mom and the dad, they make $100,000 and they're like, they think of every place that they got to go eat. They choose, where are you going to take a family of 5 for dinner without spending $500, $600 if you want to go to a nice dinner? Yeah. You don't.
If you're drinking alcohol, there's no chance.
There's no chance. You're taking the kids, everything, it's going to be $50 a pop for a half decent meal. Mm-hmm. Just for a meal.
Yeah, I don't know how people honestly afford to live in today's. I mean, it's just so expensive to do anything. Yes. And it doesn't really feel like people are slowing down. They're still traveling. They're still going out for dinners. They're still involved in all their social things.
Yep.
So at what point, I'm sure it started to slow down, but there's got to come a point where it just comes to a screeching halt, the spending. Because I think people are at max debt. I mean, credit card debt's at all-time highs. I mean, we're at peak debt. Like, how much further can this go along? And to me, if inflation keeps getting worse, which I believe it will, it's just going to become a more difficult situation for the middle class. So in my opinion, it's been the goal of the elites that run the world to really wipe out the middle class. And the way they do that is through inflation.
We're very close.
We're very close.
Because I know what these people are making. We look at thousands of applicants, probably about 1,000 applicants a week.
Wow.
Probably about 1,000 applicants a week. And hundreds of phone calls a week not just the resume. And for those positions where I'm like, I don't get it. I can't. I try to put myself in their shoes, and I'm like, well, how much quality of living do I have to decrease in order to pay the bills? So here's a fact for you from Stats Canada. Okay, I wanted to come with a fact.
Yeah, bring it. Yeah.
1 in 4 people, if there was all of a sudden something happens and it's a $500 expense they have to pay for, emergency, they don't have it. 1 in 4 people. There's 5 people in this room. There's how many people in this room right outside of these doors? Your employees. How much staff do you have here today?
Like 10.
10. And then there's 4 here, and then my staff, there's another 6. So call it with 20 people if we combine both our companies. Yeah. That means 5 of them, if something happened and they have to fork out $500, they don't have it.
Yeah, it's scary. Or scary.
Yeah.
It's scary because there's going
to... that we could bring them all into a room right now.
It's scary because supposedly we're not even in the recession yet.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yes.
But I mean, I think we are. Just based off of inflation and the lack of pay going up to match that inflation. So I think we already are in that recession. Yeah. And I think it's just going to get worse and worse. So when people lose their jobs and you're already paycheck to paycheck, like what a world of hurt you are in that situation. And that is what I truly envision happening over the next 5 years. I think every year going forward, the economy is just going to slow. Inflation is going to go higher. Economy continue to slow. Layoffs, inflation keep going higher. Yep. It's just, in my opinion, it's just a lose-lose situation. I don't see any way out of this, to be honest with you. I really don't. Now, Windsor's a unique market in Canada. I think we do have a little more opportunity than other cities just because of the amount of projects happening all at one time. And you may disagree with me, but the real estate agents I talk to,
No, there's lots of opportunity.
Right?
I'll tell you the problem. There's one problem with Windsor, though.
Okay.
One problem. Lots of opportunity, but we don't have the right talent. Lots of opportunity, but the talent physically doesn't live in the city.
So we're bringing them in from other cities.
Yes.
Gotcha.
For what roles? Like the battery plant, for example?
Exactly, yeah. And high-level engineering people. We've got a lot of people coming out of a school, but they have no hands-on experience. And you can't, they've done such a great job in the city to be ambitious, to bring in some great projects that need actual talent. The talent physically is not here. They have to steal it from other businesses that are here. So if we're bringing up this battery plant, they're going to take from our friends that own manufacturing facilities here in Oldcastle, guys that we literally golf with, they're going to be losing their employees to that. So then that company is now going to say there's not enough physical talent here, and we have to recruit them and bring them in. We bring in people all the time.
So what about all the engineer applicants you're getting? You're telling me those people are just not
They
qualified?
don't qualify for here. For the types of positions, they're too junior. They're too junior, and I was telling this, I think we mentioned this. It's funny how the conversation comes up again. I was just on AM 800 maybe a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned this. There's not enough companies that have the infrastructure to have the time to train people. The only companies that could bring in someone with zero experience and at a large scale and train him are these massive companies that run the world. Okay, like your Chryslers, right? Like your Bell Canadas, like your the companies like a Cintas or whatever. They're worth a few $1 billion, and they have it in their plan of always bringing students every year, put them through training, development. They have a development plan. But someone who's running a business and has 10 to 200 employees, it's just they're too spread thin. They can't bring in 10 people that are junior to train all 10 people. Maybe they could bring in one, but they need talent because they have to perform at the end of the day.
Well, look at the battery plant. Didn't they bring in all those engineers from China?
They're going to bring in people from around the world.
Yeah, so they didn't even... I know a lot of people, they were upset with the union with that, and
But they have no choice.
Yeah.
I can't blame them.
Yeah,
I can't blame them. They need to accomplish this project, and if the talent isn't here, the plant will never open. So there's politics and there's reality that comes in where it's like, okay, well, politically, sure, we would love to have our local Windsor people be the one that build this battery plant. But when they don't actually exist, we have human beings here, but we don't have the specific talent for this project.
Right.
Now we have to bring them in from
So
the
are
outside.
you getting people from outside? A lot of people?
All the time.
All the time?
All the time. It's not hard for me to get someone to move here.
Where are they
we do it all the
Where
time.
are they in GTA
We've
area?
moved people from the GTA. We've moved people from Nova Scotia. We've moved people from Alberta. We've from all over. I don't see a lot of people from the States coming here just because
Are they specifically looking in Windsor for work, or Windsor?
No,
just
we
happens
find
to
them.
be in their-
We
Oh,
headhunt
find
them. We find them. Like if I've got a position that I know the talent is not here,
Right.
I go and I see where in the country are they. If I find that I'll give you an example. A company wanted a very specific type of engineer. It was like a filament winding composite engineer and understands filament winding, which is essentially what that is for a pole that's made out of fiberglass. That's composite material.
Right.
Now the process to turn it into a pole, you have to wind it on a mold, and you spin the fiberglass to make this massive pole that's as high as, and I'm talking poles that are like the windmill poles, like very large scale. You need a specific type of engineer for that.
Yeah.
There's 147 of them in all of Canada, from what I found at the time when I did this. This was like 2 years ago. But none of them here. None of them here. So all I did is I put in the characteristics, and I saw them. I got a hit list of 147 people. I found that out of Montreal is where they teach the actual program specifically for that. So then all I had to do for me, fortunate for me, the company only needed one person. I was banking on, out of 147 people, one person says, I'll move to Windsor and I'm qualified. Right. And I got lucky. And there was. Yeah. Right? So that's one of the many examples of every time we have to do this. We look outside and we reach out to in volume, and then it's come on over and move here, right? So the two biggest problems, if we're looking locally, and I'm sure this is happening across a lot of different cities, so this could apply everywhere in North America. The problem number one is the wages of people. I have no idea how they're surviving and how they're even saving, and it's 1 in 4 people can't even make $500. Right. Okay, and I could imagine of the other 3 people, maybe some of them could barely make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe one of the 5 or one of the 4 is actually no problem. They can spend it. Let's just not get it twisted here. It's clear. Yeah. So it's not a pretty picture for the remaining 3. No, maybe it's one of the 4 is good. 2 out of the 4, they're like, we really didn't need to spend that, but we had it. And then the last one is like, I'm shit out of luck. So that's problem number 1, and that's across the board, whether it's a professional in a salary position or in a professional university degree or in some of the trades, okay? I think the odds are higher in the trades where you could be making a lot more money because there's a lot of physical work out there, especially in construction, manufacturing, as a plumber, electrician, millwright. Those are great positions. You'll never run out of work. The second problem in a city is not having the talent for the work that you're signing up for. That is the problem Windsor has.
So whose issue is that? Is it the colleges and the universities not offering the proper programs? Is it like who's that blame, and how do you fix it? Like, why are those positions available in other cities? Is it just because we didn't have those industries in our city for a long period of time?
Yeah, I think when you want to build anything, when something doesn't exist, there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle. Even when starting a business, you have an idea, but you realize as you start chipping away at that idea, we need this now, we need this now, we need this now. Think of a city as a business. So this is me being as understanding as possible. They've attracted a battery plant to come here, which will inevitably we now need at all times for the life of this plant being here is specific types of engineers specializing in battery technology. Okay, which we don't have here. Well, they better kick off a program at the university.
But why wouldn't we have a program here if we knew we were bringing in a big battery plant?
I don't know how far back they actually knew, like how far back this plan was. Was this like a 2-year plan, and they're like, okay, let's do it, or if they've known for 10 years that this battery plant's coming, then they screwed up. But if it was like a short window of time, that I'm not sure of.
Probably was.
Right?
Yeah.
If it was a short window of time, then it's tough to make that pivot. But if it was a long window of time, someone should have been blamed, saying, "Hey, these are the future." Maybe that's an idea for anyone in a city where, if you're running a city, it's, "Hey, what are your 10-year plans?" And make sure that your colleges are producing talent for it, or else you're, and build the city for it. That's probably something that should be incorporated in any city.
Right.
But I think that's a problem the city's having, which is, hey, at the end of the day, you're pushing barriers. You're trying to grow the city, and you're never going to have every resource. So. Sure, it happens, right? But right now we don't have enough people.
Okay.
Enough talent. We have enough physical people, just not the full talent.
Sure.
And then on the other side is, again, the wages. And I think at the end of the day, in order for people to advance, if I'm now just talking to the job seeker or the person who has a job and they can't pay the bills, I think in our culture we have created a mindset of, no, sit down. You don't have to work hard.
Yeah, totally.
And that doesn't help you when you can't make a $500 payment.
No, you're right. People don't want to work.
Yeah.
They don't want to work overtime. They don't want to have a second job. They don't want to have a little side hustle. I mean, a lot of people do. I'm not going to discredit everybody, but for the most part, the majority
younger
just
generation gets blamed from that.
Yeah.
What do you call them? The Gen
Zs, millennials, but it's in every generation.
Yeah,
I think so too. I think it's just getting worse.
Course, but there's more of it in the younger generation.
They expect to be paid well, but they don't have any experience. They just think they're entitled to a certain quality of living. But what are you offering? And they don't even think about that.
But what ignited that was the pandemic. How about
that
business?
emphasized it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Where people were sitting home getting paid. You know what I mean? I think that made it worse.
Probably.
People, like the number one, I've never had an ear to the ground in your industry, but I've never heard complaints in my life like crazy about, I can't even keep staff. Like a lot of restaurant industries and stuff like that. They just, nobody wants to work. That's all I hear from owners.
You'll like this. Every company, no matter what industry, no matter what size the company, no matter what the position, irrelevant. It could be every single type of job in the world that we've touched on. We've touched on a lot of different industries, different salaries. There's always the requirement when someone says to me, "We just need someone who wants to work." In every industry, in every city that I've touched, in everywhere.
And how do you find those people as an employer? Because I mean,
easy solution, actually.
Really?
I have an easy solution. This one, hands down, with all the confidence that I give a solution, this is the one.
All right.
Multiple interviews. Multiple stage of interviews. You do that well. Okay? Multiple stages of interviews. If you just meet someone one time, sure, you're hired. You just met them one time. You didn't put them to the test beforehand. But if they do 3 rounds of interviews over 2 weeks, they show up on time every single time, their communication was clear every single time, you've seen that there's habits there. You could pick up on someone's habit very quickly. Think of it. We're humans at the end of the day. We're not that complicated. If we all never knew each other and we went to a party and we were all invited to someone's house, I'm going to pick up a vibe of who do I want to hang out with and who do I not want to hang out with. Like, it's not that hard. Right, you could say, I could I could get along with this person. We hit it off. We talk. We feels good. We like within an initial conversation, right?
Sure.
And then there's some people who are like, that guy was weird, not interested. So let's just keep it a little simpler here. People are simple.
And then I'm assuming references.
References huge.
That was one of my earlier mistakes.
References are big.
You just fell in love with the person. You're like, oh, perfect. This guy would be great. You're not even thinking about it. All of a sudden, you're like, give them a job, you hire them, and then they're not showing up. You're like, what's going on right now? And then you realize
you didn't do your due diligence.
I didn't, but
you're 100% right. You hit it on there. I think those stretch of interviews, you could really get a grasp of someone.
You weed it out.
You're right, because one interview, I could blow you away. You know what I mean? And you'll be like, wow, this guy's great.
Yep.
But a couple interviews, then you could say, okay, this guy was late, the third one.
Or he might say something by mistake.
Yes, exactly.
And you catch him, you're like, well, that's a huge red flag. And I've had that many times in interviews. And we're like, just that one comment, I'm like, I can't hire this person.
Yeah.
Just can't.
But that's the solution. That's the solution of finding who's willing to work. Sure, my team has to now go through hundreds of people rather than tens of people to find that person that goes through all the different rounds. Right. It's part of the game. Now you got to talk to a lot more people because the ratio of, once upon a time you meet 5 people, you want to hire 3. Now, meeting 5 people is not enough. You need to meet 30 people to hopefully find 3. Yeah. Right? That's what's happening.
Now, I'm going to say one more thing. I think I'm going to plug your business a little bit here because I started using you guys maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago. And I noticed a huge difference in terms of bringing in quality talent. We tried doing it ourselves. It's one of the worst experiences I've ever had trying to find people. Because what I found is people don't show up for interviews.
Mm-hmm.
They don't answer the calls after they apply.
Yep.
It's really difficult. And
Yeah.
these guys they do all the vetting. So when you interview somebody, you already know that this person is very capable for that role.
Right. No,
you
for
know they
sure.
have, and I honestly, people like to not hire companies like you because they don't want the added expense. But in the long run, having a company like CPG Recruitment, you're going to make more money in the long run because you're going to keep your employees longer.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole overall morale will be better. The productivity of the work will be better. If you're constantly turning over people, like that's the one best thing about my company is there's no turnover.
Mm-hmm.
People don't leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a great staff here.
We do. We're very lucky. We've had great people from the beginning, but also Christian and his company have brought in many great employees to our company as well. So we're very thankful.
Yeah.
So
And he spends, and thank you for that, but he's doing it right where he spends a lot of time in the beginning making sure the right person starts.
Exactly.
Right? Whereas if
Don't
you
rush the hire,
you can't
right?
rush the hire. Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's good.
That's it.
point.
Hire slow, fire fast. But that it's a simple solution. It's a simple solution, but yes, the economy has changed where now, I do have to talk to 100 people to hopefully find a couple that are good, right? But that's, at the end of the day, how do we transition that if we're focusing on quality of life for people and what they want to do for a living and then invest their money and have a good life? I think that's the transition I'd like to make with you here because you've got some great things. I've got money that I've spent with you here.
Yeah.
To with as far as precious metals and investing, but I've been fortunate enough simply because I work hard to make money, and I think the world needs to remind people that hey, listen, like this 20-hour work week doesn't exist if you can't afford $500. It's not hard to make $500.
Right.
It's really not hard to do it, but just put in some effort. Get a second job if you have to.
Right.
I don't think that's promoted enough. Did your parents immigrate here?
Yep.
Yes.
Your parents immigrated here. Your
Yes,
parents immigrated. My parents immigrated here. Did we see our dads growing up?
Never.
Never.
My dad didn't come to one of my
Never.
sporting.
Never.
Didn't even,
Because he
didn't even
came
cross
here.
his mind.
He
to
came
come.
here.
We always joke about
It's gotta
that 'cause
work.
We got kids.
Yeah,
We go
and-
to all their
I go to everything.
everything.
I'm going for
Yeah.
these. I don't know
Never.
what these events are
Yeah.
at the grade school. I'm like, why are you inviting me to these things?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's because he had a duty and he was
Yeah.
working.
Yes, that was his
48
responsibility.
hours,
Right.
48 hours a day, not 24 hours a day, 48
You're right.
hours a day
Yeah.
to go and make money
Yeah.
while someone else worked their 9 to 5.
That was a
And
different
that's
way.
why
That's
you
going to have to
we're
come
here.
back to
It
our
has to.
society for things to
Yep.
get better.
Yeah.
Because right now it's a lot of laziness. We're not putting in the time. Just,
Yep.
Especially now because, okay, so we know you're not going to be a millionaire with all these low wages.
right.
Never.
So how do you survive in this
Yeah.
economy?
And this is
So where are you investing? Where, like, you got to have a second job. You got to be an entrepreneur,
I think-
perhaps.
personally, I think even more important than the second job is being able to save money,
Right.
but not save it and put it in a bank.
Right.
You have to invest your money.
Yeah.
The only way to get ahead and to be able to retire at a decent age
Right.
and to enjoy finer things in life is to invest your money and to have it grow.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, compound interest is something that's not taught in school. But if you're constantly investing a certain amount of money and it's earning a certain percentage, it grows substantially.
Exactly.
And also, if you find the right investments at the right times, and for example, I just happen to sell gold and silver, but silver, in my opinion, is a generational opportunity. It's an investment that I believe you can make 50 to 100 times on your money. Cryptocurrency, same thing. I've been a promoter and advocate of cryptos for the last 7 years. It's one of those investments that can take you from middle class to higher class, or keep you in the middle class from falling into the lower class.
Exactly,
I
yeah.
think people don't take it serious enough. If they have an extra $1,000 at the end of the year, they go shopping. Or if they have an extra $5,000 at the end of the year, they go on vacation. Instead of saying, listen, I have to invest $5,000 a year. I think you have to put a certain percentage, whatever that percentage is, 10, 15%, 20% of whatever you make has to be put to the side, and you have to invest it.
Yeah.
You have to. Not just invest it in, you have to have an idea of to what you're investing in. You have to do some research, study, listen to people who are talking, who are experts on the topic. I just think people don't invest enough to be able to grow financially. And I think that's what I try to promote as much as I can. People just have a really hard time taking their money out of the bank and putting it into something where they get no return instantaneous. They want returns now. People
Yeah.
are always looking
Yeah.
like, oh, well, that investment didn't make money the last 2 years. Well, your investment, you're supposed to be investing for 5 years at least on an investment.
Yeah.
So you can't.
Yeah.
You're not looking to get rich quick. This is a long-term play, so that you're able to retire, so that you're able to pay for your school, your kids' school, your education.
Yeah.
Not so that you can't pay a $500 bill. Like that just means you're spending too much money.
Yeah.
And it's not. Some of them it's not their fault because the expenses of the world it is what it is,
Yeah.
and you're just not going to be able to get ahead. You just need a higher paying job. I get that, and that's why there's side hustles. I'm not saying don't have a side hustle. You need that. You need that to generate some extra income.
Yeah.
Generating income is important, but taking that income and reinvesting it, to me, is just as important, if not more important.
100%.
Where do you personally? I know you've invested with me
Yep.
when it comes to silver and crypto. What other types of investments?
Well, for
are
me,
you looking at?
my scenario is a little different because for me, it's my business. That's
yeah.
my priority one.
Perfect.
Priority one is my own company.
For sure.
Then it's, I've got silver and I've got crypto. I've kept it that simple from my end. I'm not attracted to the housing market here. I think it's I'm now getting to a point, like I've got a goal for this year to build a down payment between our businesses, and we're going to buy apartment buildings, small, like a 10 unit or something. Like I'd be interested in states down south.
Sure.
That catches my attention because if I'm going to spend $1 million on a piece of property, it's not going to be a single family home. It's going to be at least something that has 5 units in it, and I could generate income off of it. I don't want to buy what I live in.
For sure.
Just kind of stick it from the real estate side of things.
Yeah.
But generally, other than that, it's either I'm good with the. You've got me convinced on precious metals all day long, especially silver. And
Yeah,
crypto.
I mean, now you're
got me
seeing
fully convinced.
gold finally at all-time highs. Silver's finally starting to move. I think it's up 10% the last 2 days. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're starting to see the inflation come out, and that's really
Yeah.
what that is a reflection of. All that means when you see precious metal pricing going up is the dollar is losing value. The dollar is dying.
Well, I'll tell you one thing though. So I've bought a handful of silver, not a lot, not as much as I want to buy more. What it's done for me psychologically
Sure.
is having it. It kind of feels like, because if you have the cash, you spend it.
For sure.
If I'm like, there's been so many scenarios where I'm like, you know what? I had $1,000 right now. I could buy that toy that I want or whatever. And then I'm like, it's buried away with some silver.
Yeah.
What am I going to take? I got to go
can't sell my
downstairs.
silver. No.
I got to take my silver.
It's a tough process.
I got to go. I got to
So you
come
keep
here. I
it.
got to
It makes
see
you
my.
save.
Yeah, it does.
It makes me
It's
say
fortunate.
honestly,
Yes,
if
100%.
if I was someone who is young or middle or old or whatever and wants, to me the biggest value of the silver itself is it allows me to take extra money that I certainly just don't want to touch, because not to access it on an app in a savings
Right.
account and be able to take it
exactly.
anytime.
Yeah.
It made saving habits. Like I know I have a stash saved that if I came here to sell it, I know Mike will tell me, no, I'm not letting you sell it.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. Mike,
It's
Yes.
amazing how many people I try to talk out of selling their silver,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
usually it's for some type of financial
Yeah.
reason, right? Every person that comes here and sells me silver, they don't want to sell it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
first thing they say,
They have
I
to.
don't want to sell it right now. I feel it sucks, but I need to do this
Yeah.
or this.
And hopefully it's for a good thing, and it's for if they want to, like if
Yeah,
I
invest
came to
in
you
a
and I was saying I
business.
want to invest in my business, I need the
Sure.
money, sure, but not to go and be frivolous and
Go
I
on
had this.
vacation and-
So I would encourage anybody. We got to bring back the habit of it's okay, work harder, man. What are you gonna do? You're gonna sit at home on a couch and deteriorate your body? Go do something productive, make some extra money, and if it's little at a time. Hey, silver is what, $24 an ounce?
27 now.
27 an ounce. That's
moving.
that's
It's moving.
Well, that's, believe it or not, that's less than the average dollars per hour. You have to work now 2 hours to get your 27 for the number of people. That's how crazy this world is. Which
Yeah.
now you got to work 2 hours, come here, buy some silver with Mike, and save it. While your first day job is the one that takes care of your cost of living. So I'm a little aggressive with my interviews. I'm a little unorthodox. So I straight up ask people. I say, "What's your cost of living? How much money do you need to make?" I don't want to put you in a job that's making you lose.
Yeah.
You have no idea how many people don't even know
have
how
no
much
idea.
they have no clue. They're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What does it cost you to live from now until 30 days from now?"
And that's our schooling. I mean, we just never
no
were taught budget, simple budget,
Yeah. Just
write it
cash
down.
flow
Yes.
statement.
It's not even budget. It's
100%.
just write it down. What did you spend? Don't even no math.
Doesn't
no
even
math
cross their
required.
mind to do that.
Just write it down and just add it up and tell me what it costs you month over month to live.
I
Most
did the
people don't
same
do
when
that.
I was a financial advisor. I did the same. I did a cash flow statement with each. What's your revenue? What's your expenses? And where are you left with at the end?
Yep.
And like they've never done this before, and then you do it, and you're like, wow, you're negative, or you're barely getting by. And they don't realize that. They don't think they're in that bad of a financial situation until they do those spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm. And they see it in front of them. And
you
it's
touched
easy.
on something we never touched on this podcast, is precious metals. It's tough to sell, so you save it more. That's really good.
It's the best savings account I have.
That's a finer point. But another thing that Michael brought up, what people don't know, and I want Michael to talk about it, is people don't understand that's an insurance. And Mike, you could talk about how, you know, people have car insurance. And
I've been saying that recently. Everybody's all about being insured. They have car insurance, life insurance, home insurance. They have insurance for everything. Critical illness insurance if you get cancer. Yeah. They're insured on everything, and they feel like they have to have it, which is great. But for some reason, nobody has any financial insurance. But people don't even know what financial insurance is. So I like to tell people gold and silver is exactly that. So if the financial system were to implode, but you still have gold and silver, you are going to make out better than everybody else. It's the people who don't have any tangible assets in their possession. When that financial system goes down, which it will at some point, people are at risk of losing everything. Or their investments going down 80%, or their real estate value going down 60, 70%, or losing their job. But if you have gold and silver, and this situation does incur, gold and silver are going to explode to the upside, similar to how they did in the 1970s, when silver went up 41 times, gold went up 25 times. Real estate and stocks performed very poorly in that decade. Okay, so this is the decade that I believe is very similar to the 1970s. So the opportunity right now, in my opinion, is gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, and all those other assets, real estate, stocks, and bonds, are going to flatline and potentially go down significantly. So yeah, I try to tell people you have to have some gold and silver in your portfolio. It doesn't need to be a lot. 5% of your portfolio, 10% of your portfolio, even 2%. Right now, only 0.5% of people own precious metals. And that's not physical. That's even owning a mining company or on an ETF on the stock market. People are still not exposed to that asset class because they truly don't understand it. I mean, their financial advisor's not telling them to buy gold and silver because they don't make money off it. Financial advisor's not telling them to buy cryptocurrencies because they don't make any money off of it. The banks aren't telling people to buy any of those assets. They want to sell their products because that's how they make money. So people aren't taught about why you should invest in gold and silver. They don't understand the history of it. They don't understand fiat currencies, which is our currency, because it's backed by nothing. Nobody really understands any of that because it's not taught to us. Because if we truly understood how our money worked, I mean, it would be a revolution right away. We would want to get rid of the central banks, stop being a slave to the banking system, because that's what we are right now. Total slaves. So I just tell people you have to have a position in precious metals. Everybody owns stocks. Not everybody, but a lot of people own stocks or TFSA or 401k or RSP with their financial advisor. But nobody owns gold and silver. And it's like, that means you're not insured.
That means you're not financially insured.
You're not.
Right?
You could lose it all.
We could wake up one morning, which experts are predicting like crazy. You know, Robert Kiyosaki is one of them. He's always predicting this big crash that's coming. And he's saying cash is trash.
Cash, real estate. He's made all his wealth in real estate.
And he's made all his wealth in real estate.
And he's telling you, sell your real estate. Like, this is not the time. This is not the generation for real estate. We have already had that. And he says the next generation will get wealthy off of precious metals and cryptocurrencies.
Right.
Very similar mindset as myself. The only thing is I didn't make that money off real estate like he did. He actually played that really well.
Yeah.
But going forward,
really well.
Very well. But I don't really see that opportunity in real estate over the next decade or so.
Yeah.
So
and you can't even half, I don't know what percentage, but people in their 20s and 30s, maybe even some that are in their 40s, but where are you going to buy a million? If your average sale price is 600, 700 grand, that's a big number.
Oh, yeah.
$1 million. 600 to $1 million. That's not an easy number.
No, absolutely
right?
not.
Like when you factor in...
How are you going to save that?
Yeah, like I told my fiance, I said, I have zero interest. Why? We just went and looked at a house. I was very tempted because I'm like, it just looked awesome, and I'm like, it's 1.3 million. I'm like, sure, I could buy it, but now my quality of living, I might be in a really nice, cool house.
You're a slave to your house.
But I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to go out and eat and drink and have a good time. Like and now I'm gonna be counting on everything and
or reinvest in your business.
I'm like, exactly. I'm like, now it's like.
You don't want to be
everything's
house
like
poor.
You don't,
trapped,
and
yeah,
and,
I'm
and that's a
like-
big
that's-
issue nowadays. I mean, I think everybody is trying to
Yeah.
keep up with the Joneses. Their friends are buying these big homes, and
It's is it envy? Is that what did God put in human beings? That's the flaw.
Well,
because
yeah.
why do we want a big fancy house? Because I want to
Because
show it to someone.
it is. It is.
I want the
Because we have
status.
social
right?
media,
Jealousy and
yeah,
envy,
and
for
we
sure.
want to keep up
Is-
with the Joneses.
You're
It's
right.
all-
It's a jealousy thing.
Yeah.
If that
Yeah.
DNA wasn't in our body, we wouldn't care. We
Yeah,
would all be
exactly.
we'd all be at least 20%
Yeah.
richer if we didn't have that DNA in
and,
our
and,
body.
and entitlement, and people feel like they're entitled.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
this guy's got this. I should have that. Well, who cares what this guy has?
It's a
doesn't mean
DNA.
he should- he
It's a
can afford
DNA.
that.
We can't get rid of it. That was planted in our
Right.
code.
Well, the
we
other
can't
DNA
get rid of it.
that,
We all have it.
The other
three of us have it.
DNA that was planted is the story of the American dream of owning your own home,
That's out the
Yes.
door.
which
That
was a total
story in the
scam
90s.
created by the banks
Right.
just to take all your money and eventually take your real estate too. Because that's the next stage when people start handing in their keys, and that's what you're going to see over this next decade when people can no longer afford it. So everybody's in this world today wants to buy a house. Why? What is the infatuation with owning a house? I understand it's nice and it's gone up in value. Listen, you would have been a smart person if you've done that over the past few decades.
Yes.
But in today's
world's done.
today's
right.
price, if you can't afford it, why are you going to buy it? Why are you going to put yourself through that
Yeah,
stress?
Exactly.
I mean, just rent for a bit until you figure things out, or you
Well, now it's out of reach.
it is out of reach.
The younger generation coming into a home, like when I was in my 20s, I could buy a nice home for 150, 200 grand. That's
Yeah.
unheard of now.
It's not an option.
Yeah.
You'd have to move. You'd have to go to some city in the middle of nowhere, and
There's
you'd
no
have to
opportunities.
Move. You'd have to move.
Yeah,
It'd have to be going to an underdeveloped city. That's the only way if you want to own a house, but then it's quality of life. Now you're leaving your whole family, you're leaving whatever, for what? For owning a building. Take that money and you imagine what you could do if you wanted to borrow 600 grand to buy a house. I'd rather you borrow 600 grand to go build something, build a business, go buy a bunch of gold. with it.
Completely
But you
agree.
take the money. You
That's
want
what
the
I say.
most,
Take the
it.
money,
100%.
buy
Do it
some
in something
silver,
else.
buy some crypto, or invest in a business.
But,
Yeah.
But to
like,
just throw it in a house that's not going to appreciate in value, and it's just going to make you house broke.
Yeah.
To make that mortgage payment every month, like what's the purpose?
Yeah.
I don't know. Things are going to change, so I think they've already started. Rent is definitely
well, people don't have a choice. I want to read this tweet from Wall Street Silver, and Peter St. Onge said, Canada's FBI, which I believe is CSIS, warns civil unrest from falling living standards, predicting an end of abundance in Canada. As the countermeasures they recommend for Canada's budding police state, the part is redacted. After a decade of decline in inflation, Canada has a San Francisco priced homes with West Virginia wages. Just 1 in 4 Canadians can afford to buy a house. The younger generation is losing hope even faster than in America. Instead of fixing the economy, they'll silence the dissent instead. Yeah, because we have a police
We're
state.
already there.
Yeah,
we're already there.
It's true.
I have no idea how people are surviving.
Well, I think
No
what we're
idea.
starting to see now is people are starting to leave Canada. And it's just
Yeah.
not affordable, and I think that
Yeah.
trend's going to continue.
Yeah.
I know the population, and I think that's one of the big reasons that Canadian government is allowing all these immigrants to come in. Because if you don't, you're going to see a rapid population decline in Canada.
But you know what?
only-
These immigrants are leaving too. They come
are.
here.
It's
are
a
leaving.
mistake.
And
It's
they're
the biggest
leaving 'cause
mistake they
they're
could
like,
make.
I can't make it.
I heard 50% drop this
Yeah.
year is expected because
So-
they just can't afford to live in
So
Canada.
I'll just
Yeah,
preemphasize.
go ahead.
We all have immigrant parents.
Sure.
We all believe
100%.
we love immigration.
it.
We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for
100%.
that.
I'm all
Okay?
for it.
But that was 20, 40 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
The billboard of come and live this dream, if they're still using it, it's now false
Yeah,
advertising.
there's no
Yes,
dream.
yeah.
You're scamming people to come here.
It's now a scam. It's now a scam. Now it's bring them in by international students, have them bill them 50 grand a piece
Yeah.
to have them get an education, and then to not get a job and then go back home.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Exactly.
Like what our dads did.
I know.
Yeah.
I see it. I see it.
But there
I see
was
it every day.
Tons of opportunity when my parents
For
came
sure.
here.
Yeah.
Automotive industry
Yeah.
of Canada. I mean, you got into Fords, you got into Chrysler, you got into GM. You had enough money
Yeah, that
to have everything. House, put the kids to school.
Yeah.
That took care of everything.
The only sales pitch I would imagine the Canadian government's making to convince people to come here it's going to be safety if you're in a country that has
Yeah.
war, so you come here as a refugee, or it's going to be still they push the universities and the education and get them in under a student visa, and everyone makes a lot of money with that.
Right.
So but it's not. It's I can't see it. I can't see it. The dream that my parents signed up for doesn't exist anymore.
The opportunities are not in Canada. I mean, it's the rest.
Yeah.
There's other parts in the world that have greater
Sad.
opportunity,
Yeah.
greater weather.
Well, look what just happened recently with this carbon tax. That people are furious. People that I knew were very liberal are furious. I just like the writing's on the wall. He just like,
And we haven't even
Trudeau
seen
is-
the price increases that will come
Yeah.
from that yet. I mean, that the effects of that have
Talk
still
about
just
kicking
begun.
someone while they're down.
Yeah, they don't care. They're raising rates on us. They're increasing taxes.
I don't know what the
It's
agenda
a-
is. It's night and day clear. But
To me, yeah,
I
it
don't know
seems
what
pretty
is.
obvious that they're just trying to
They're trying to crush
punish the middle class and make them dependent on the government, because that's when the government has the most control.
Yeah.
Is when you're dependent on them, and that's where we're headed right now. And I think that's just we're going to just become more of a socialist, communist country.
Mike, I was 23 years old when I had that car wash. I was the amount I was saving just from washing people's cars. It was like cash on cash on. I loved it. It was so easy to live. My mortgage was $1,200. I had my house $1,200. I had 2 trucks on the road. They would run me about $100 a week, each one of them, for a full service truck that's on the road 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
$100 a week in gas. These are big V8 engines. That's what I was paying. Okay, I had employees. This that I was running a business for under $100,000 a year.
That's good.
How the hell? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
times
I can't even imagine it anymore.
know,
I can't.
know.
There's no way in hell I
I
could
know.
do it again, right? And I'm like, now I'm doing 7, 8, 10 times the amount, and I felt my life was easier just washing people's cars back then.
For sure.
But now, if I look at the money that I made back then and the transaction I had, I'd be obliterated. There's no way I'd survive in today's
Getting
economy
worse
from just 8 years ago,
worse and
7
worse.
years ago, not long ago.
It's happened fast.
Now let's go back to 1950. You had one income.
Yep.
The wife and the mother would stay at home
Mm-hmm.
with 3 kids. You had a house, a car. Everything was taken care of one income.
Yep.
Now you look.
The heyday, the good
Now
days.
we're at 2 incomes
You're still
at
not
6-figure salaries, and you're
No, no.
just
Okay, but
making
that's
it.
now. So now, fast forward
So
10 years.
exactly. What's going to
It's
happen?
game over.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
literally game over. I mean, unless you
Yeah.
move out of Canada and go seek other opportunities.
Right.
But to try to pull it off in Canada, if you're not an entrepreneur doing a bunch of different things, or you got a couple different jobs, or
Yeah.
a side hustle, I mean, to just
Yeah.
live off of your paycheck alone,
Yeah.
it's going to be a really, really tough
So
feat.
I know we talked a lot about doom and gloom, but there's something very optimistic. This is a great time to be alive, investment wise. So you go see Christian, you get a $60,000 job and another side hustle.
And another job, 2 jobs.
Then you invest your money. Now is perfect time to invest the money with crypto and precious metals. It's about to explode. So you could combat all the inflation.
That's the only
all
way.
the-
That's
yeah,
your only
the
way to
only
fight
way you'll
inflation is
survive.
to be
So
protected.
there's a ticket out for people. It's not just
There is an
doom.
out.
Yeah.
To me, it's
Yeah.
one of the greatest opportunities of our generation,
Yes.
for sure. Silver, crypto's another one. I think a lot of people missed the big move already, but I think Bitcoin's probably going to go to $1 million. Okay, silver's probably going to go to $1,000. So those are assets that you can make 50 times your money.
Exactly.
These don't come around. Real estate, you were able to make 10 to 20 times over the last few decades.
Right.
But this is even a bigger opportunity. It's not like it hasn't happened before. Like I said before, silver went up 41 times in the 70s. That's exactly what's about to happen in this next 10 years. You're going to see silver absolutely explode. So if you were able to find 10 grand, throw it in silver, goes up 50 times, you make 500 grand. Now it doesn't matter if inflation keeps going higher and higher and higher. You have this little nest egg that you just built because you were able to put $10,000 into silver, and it's going to save you and your family financially. There's nothing more important, in my opinion, than to have that nest egg and that investment into physical silver at this point.
So let's just end on that optimistic point, because I don't want the suicide rate to go up after they watch the first half of this podcast.
Yeah.
But you know what, Christian, where could people get a hold of you so we could put the link below in our description?
You know, if they just Google CPG recruitment, will
Okay.
pop up.
And we'll put your website there?
Website cpgincorporated.com, or even if they look up careers, people growth. Those
Okay, great.
keywords they'll find.
Awesome.
You'll find it pretty easy. Okay.
Thanks, brother.
No,
Appreciate
thank
you coming on. It was a lot of fun.
It was
For
fun.
sure. We'll
We
do it
gotta
again.
do this again.
For
Sure. Hopefully
No.
things are better the next time.
Yeah. We'll see.
I think we could do
We'll
a
see.
3-hour one.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.